And we're live, I think. Can everyone see me? Can I be seen? Can I be heard? Yes, I can see me on my little screen. Hi everyone. So yeah, this is just a thank you cocktail and Q&A for getting Tasting History to 1 million subscribers. We've got Jose here, right off camera. He'll be kind of helping me field questions. And I've got a cocktail. We're getting ready to leave town, so we've gotten rid of most of the mixers so they don't go bad. So I believe I'm having gin and mango juice, which is great. It is. Yeah. So unbelievable. Best Christmas gift ever. Hitting 1 million subscribers. Not, I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary number, just 1 million, but it's a big thing. And I'll get a gold plaque for it, so that'll be fun. Yeah, I'm just so excited for what is to come for Tasting History. I have so many cool ideas for the next year and really kind of long term, but especially for the next 4 or 5 months, I've got some stuff I'm really, really excited to work on. I don't want to give anything away, but it should be good. But I'm also always looking for, suggestions. I've gotten a lot of my best videos from viewer suggestions. So if you have anything, especially if it comes with a cool story or a recipe, please send it my way. tastinghistorycontact@gmail.com or on Instagram. I'm a little slow in getting back to both of those places, but eventually I do read every message. So Etrigan, oh, thank you, Etrigan. So GM Etrigan is one of my very first Patreon patrons, and he helped me set up Discord and is just an all-around huge supporter of the channel. And most importantly, he was the one that gave me the idea for the hardtack episode, which is probably one of the most fun that I've done. Clack, clack. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Phoenix. Wanda Pease. Do we have questions? Field your questions. I am really excited because I got a lot of questions for Ken Albala when he was here last week filming, and that video will go up at the beginning of January. So really excited about that, and it was just cool to get to work with, one of my culinary heroes. Am I late? No, you are not late. You're right on time. Have you ever made the original graham cracker? No, I didn't even know there was an original graham cracker. I love graham crackers, mainly as crusts for cheesecake, but I'll have to find a good episode. What is your favorite Pokemon? My favorite Pokemon is Blastoise or Blastoise. And I also love Snorlax. I feel like we have a lot in common. I also love Wailmer. I like the big ones, I guess. I don't know. What about you, Jose? Bulbasaur, he says. Will you ever see any of the crazier Roman recipes? I mean, I did a whole pig. I've done some of the crazier Roman recipes. So I'm guessing you're talking about things like flamingo tongue, dormouse, maybe peacock, antelope. The problem is finding those ingredients. So the answer is yes, I want to do all of those, but it's going to be finding the ingredients that's the hard part. I think partly I'll need to travel to get some of those because some of those are not illegal in places, and some things like the dormouse, you could probably use a different ingredient and it's going to taste very similar. But some things like flamingo tongue, supposedly that can't be really recreated just with chicken tongue or whatever. So some of them might be kind of hard. I don't know that I could bring myself to eat a flamingo. They're just so pretty. So yes and no is the answer to that. Any specific periods that you think have the best or most interesting food recipes? From Alexandra. I think most interesting, just to my palate, I think is medieval Europe in general, but especially, medieval Northern Europe. Just the weird, well, and Italy too. The weird combination of sweet and spiced in savory foods, I think, is just very, very interesting to my palate. That said, I think now, even with foods like any food from the Philippines, I always find is very intriguing to my palate, because it's not something that I have often. And I've eaten quite a bit of Filipino food, and it's always very often just like, oh, this is interesting. It's also so cool because it has so much influence from the Spanish, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Indians, and then of course their native cuisine. So it's a really cool. It's a cool cuisine.
Here's a cool
Let
one.
me know if we have any super chats too.
Father Papriko, just want to say thank you for being inspirational, and we look forward to seeing more in the future.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it too.
I think you got to give credit because your idea is not wholly new. There's been episodes, shows in the past.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everyone here. Well, a lot of you probably know Townsend's. They do 18th century cooking. Now he's really expanded. Well, now he has Townsend's Plus, but he's really expanded to not just cooking, but 18th century living. He also touches on early 19th century living in America, in the U.S. And that he was definitely a big influence on me. I mean, obviously, the Great British Bake Off, while now it's just baking, in the early days, they always had some food history in there. That was actually the main catalyst for me. But one of the judges on the original Bake Off, not judges, one of the hosts on the original Bake Off, also did this show called Supersizers Go, where they went to different places in time and would dress and eat of the period, and they're really, really funny. And so those were all big influences. So what I'm doing is not new. What I'm doing is just me. That's the only difference, is it's me. And a lot of those other shows take place in a kitchen that is period, using period, everything, really trying to stick with the reenactment of it all. I do it in my kitchen here as necessity called for at the beginning of the pandemic, and then it just hasn't changed. And so I'm more, let's make this available to you in your home kitchen. So that's the big difference. What else?
Jordan sends us congratulations, and
thank you, Jordan.
Mac the Knife says you are amazing.
Thank you, Mac the Knife. Also, I love your name. Love that song. That was actually my parents' song. It is my parents' song. That's the first song they danced to when they got married.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, Twinblade wanted to ask if you ever do a video with Dylan Hollis.
Yes, absolutely. And we're actually in contact. Not a lot, but we have been in contact. Dylan Hollis. Can you all hear Jose when he talks? He's very quiet, and I'm right here with the mic. Yes, I would definitely do something with Dylan. Obviously, our styles are incredibly different. But I think it would really be fun to do something together. I think he's funny. So more Transylvanian recipes from Jane Grey, Lady Jane Grey. I haven't done any more, but I'm going to. Yes, that book is filled with really interesting things. My thing is not. Oh, those are from way back. It's not updating. Mary Lee, anything you've made that was just awful? Awful. I'm sure there have been things that were just awful. I mean, the Kikion, that some were just disappointing. The panettone, the quick panettone from yesterday. I'll take the new one.
It wasn't awful.
It wasn't awful. It wasn't awful. It was just disappointing in comparison with what Artusi had said. This is even better than. No, it is not. Wrong.
The fat tail sheep. That didn't look appetizing.
But I liked it. It was very greasy. The Babylonian lamb broth of lamb. The flavor was good. The texture was a little odd, and it looked gross. How are you in the wake of this huge milestone from Terry and Tibble? I'm okay. I'm keeping it together. Thank you. And yes, Mel and Sue, that's who the hosts were. I miss them very, very much. Thank you, Mulan Bell. Any recipes you've kept making after trying for the show? Oh, well, there's one. So I made the pecan pie. This is from Claire. I made the pecan pie for Thanksgiving because my niece, who is allergic to all nuts, found out that she's no longer allergic. They did all these tests, had like a person there with the EpiPen at the doctor's office and everything. She's no longer allergic to nuts. And the first thing that she wanted to try with nuts was Uncle Max's pecan pie from his show. She tried it. She didn't like it. But everybody else did. So now, and it went really fast. So now on Friday, I have to make 3 of them for Christmas. So that's one thing I make a lot of. There are a few others. What do we got here? What do we got here? My thing is not scrolling automatically, which is kind of odd.
Kate Bartlett says, "Congrats on 1,000,000."
Thank
and she
you.
can't wait to explore more foods across time. Can we get a transcript?
Like a transcription?
Transcript?
Oh, trans rights? Absolutely. Yes. Did you look at the Ottoman cuisine? Yes, I have. And that is on the schedule. It keeps getting moved. I don't know why. Some things just end up getting moved. But yes, I am doing the Ottoman cuisine. I've come up with so much cool history for it. It still hasn't come.
And Muzas wants to know, what's your opinion on Russian cuisine?
So I actually like a lot of Russian cuisine. I haven't had a ton, but I do like some. But I did start reading the Domostroy, I believe is how you pronounce it. It is a Russian text on how to run a household from the time of Ivan the Terrible, which I think is 16th century, early 16th century, late 15th. And there are some recipes in there on how to make some stuff. So I'm going to actually try to cook from that. Because finding old Russian recipes, very, very hard. Really, the first Russian cookbook didn't come out until the 19th century. And finding an accurate translation has proven difficult. I found one, but it's not. It's a modernized. It's not really a translation. So working on it.
Someone asked if they can't eat cilantro, is there anything you would recommend to replace it with?
Soap, I guess. No. If you can't eat cilantro because it tastes like soap, I don't know. Is there anything else that tastes like cilantro? I can't think of anything. It has a very distinct taste. Other herbs, I guess. It's not like, marjoram you can swap with Italian oregano and nobody's going to notice the difference. But cilantro is a very unique taste, which I think is one reason why it is so polarizing. Yeah, it keeps going all the way up.
Emil wants to know what your favorite dish is that you've eaten on the show.
I really, really like the Transylvanian, for entree sake, I'd say the Transylvanian garlic harvester sauce with beef. That was so good. It's actually, I think, one of the few things that I have finished even after the show. Because a lot of things that I make on the show, they end up sitting out for so long while I take photos and film and everything. By the time it's ready to eat in a large quantity, it's kind of gone bad sometimes. That's why I do like baked goods and stuff. They stick around.
And Andrew wants to know, what's your favorite meal to make at home on a typical weekday? You don't cook.
Takeout usually. Sometimes, we do cook occasionally when we have time, but it's just, after being in the kitchen filming or whatever, the last thing I want to do is actually be in the kitchen anymore. I also think that we're going to hopefully move in the not too distant future and to a bigger kitchen, and hopefully then I'll be able to bake, especially more just for fun. It's just really hard to do because now the kitchen is, you can't see it because it's right off screen, but the kitchen is absolutely filled with stuff for the show. And so it makes cooking outside of the show very, very difficult.
Amanda wants to know about if we have any Native American dishes coming up. I'll add it. Might as well throw in Jewish cuisine.
So yes and yes. Possible Jewish cuisine in January. Medieval Spanish Jewish cuisine has some interesting stuff about it. The Native American cuisine, it was supposed to happen, but then another channel ended up doing the exact same thing. So I'm going to put some space in between that. I also don't want to just rely on the standard episodes. I want, or the standard cuisine that tends to make it onto YouTube. So I'm looking for something a little more specific. I actually am reaching out to the Heard Museum in Phoenix, where I'm from. My godmother was very, very involved with that museum. They are all about nations from that area, mostly Hopi, Pima, some Apache, some Navajo. And so I can get a little bit more insight. Part of the problem is there hasn't been as much written about those cuisines. And so researching them from my perspective has proven very difficult. So I need someone who really knows the cuisine to kind of put their hand in. And that's just with the pandemic, that's proved more difficult than I thought it would be. That's why Ken coming over last week, that's the first time that I've had somebody over to the house for filming.
Jenna wants to ask, what's your perfect historical kitchen?
My perfect historical kitchen. Oh, a historical kitchen? Oh boy. I would actually go with a medieval English kitchen. Actually, look at the pictures from Scapi, from Scapi's opera. He has pictures of the Renaissance Italian kitchen. That's my perfect kitchen. It's like 20 rooms, and each room is 10 times the size of our condo. That's my perfect kitchen. Pots the size of a Cadillac. Literally. They're huge.
Tom missed it, but he just wanted to know what you're drinking.
Oh, so I was saying that we're pretty much out of all of our mixers and everything because we're getting ready to leave town for the holidays and everything. So this is gin and mango juice. It's basically what was left that I could make an alcoholic drink out of.
And
it's very good.
Some people that have been here for a while were wondering about that musical episode and what's the status there.
I have no time. It is something that I really want to do, but so I have a few composer friends. I actually want to make a song about tasting history, kind of covering the last 2 years of episodes or something like that. But it's not something you just throw together. I got to 1 million a lot faster than expected, was part of the problem. I expected it to take 4 or 5 years. It took a year and a half. So,
it's the cookbook.
It's the cookbook that's keeping. The cookbook is taking. It's so much more work than I ever thought it would be. We're getting there, and it'll be delivered to the publisher. At least my portion needs to be next month. Then there's a lot more to do after that, but I won't be so involved, so I can focus on other things. A lot more drinking history, some other projects that I want to work on, and then in March and April, there's going to be a big project that I'm looking forward to. Don't want to give anything away.
Chino wants to know about the history of baklava.
The history of baklava. I mean, I could do a whole episode on it. It actually has some. It actually goes way, way back. There's an idea actually that the placenta cake that I did from ancient Rome is baklava is a descendant of that style of cake. The phyllo dough that baklava uses that makes it just so good is fairly new. There wasn't more recent, so it doesn't go back that far, not to ancient times at least. But I would like to make it. Your biggest surprise, like ingredients that you really didn't expect to like. Feta. Hands down, smells like death. And then you cook with it, and it's actually quite good. Kind of has a burnt garlic taste, which doesn't sound good, but it is in small bits. Somebody had mentioned, since we're in Burbank, should we work with Mythical Kitchen? So I actually got to do their podcast What's it called? A donut is not a hot dog.
No, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? Where did I get donut? Is a hot dog a sandwich? And they are here in Burbank. They're very busy. I'm very busy, so it has not happened yet. But it is kind of funny because was it a couple of weeks ago we ended up doing rather similar topics. The mince pie. They made one and I made one. We don't talk to each other or anything. We had no idea that was going to happen, and they ended up coming out on the same day, so that was kind of cool. Two people making 19th century mince pies in Burbank the same week. That's probably a first.
Here's a popular question. Do you want to run through how your creative process works, just for anyone that's new?
Yeah, I could honestly do a whole video, like a behind the scenes on the research process, but basically I start off each episode with an idea of usually a dish. Sometimes it's a topic of history that I want to cover, but usually it's a specific dish. Like I have a recipe that I want to cover. And then the history can either come out of that recipe specifically. Was it served at a certain place or to a certain person? Is there an ingredient that I want to talk about? I could talk about just cattle in Scotland, for example, doing the Scottish dish. But usually it starts with a dish, sometimes an idea. At first, I used to get those simply by leafing through old cookbooks, but now I usually get them from ideas that I've had while working on other episodes, and so I keep like a log, or from viewers saying, "Hey, this is interesting. Hey, have you looked into this?" And sometimes I won't end up doing that, but that will lead me down a path. If you start reading any history book or whatever, you end up finding these little tidbits that are so much more interesting than the actual topic that they're talking about. And usually that's what I end up liking to cover on the channel. The main topic is often covered by other history channels. So part of the way that I find those interesting little tidbits in history is reading a book. I go to the bibliography, and then the bibliography has all of their sources, and it's that level. Even if you go to Wikipedia and are reading just kind of a general overview of something, scroll down to the very bottom, the part that nobody ever looks at, and look at the bibliography. They're using actual sources to get a lot of that stuff, or sometimes it's third layer or whatever, and that's where you get all the really good nuggets of history. From there, and I've usually written 10 or 15 pages of just facts. Then I start crafting it into a script and into a story. And then I test out parts of the recipe and kind of figure out maybe what's a modern version that I can kind of glean some information on quantities of and everything. And then once I have the script, I film usually the cooking first. Well, always the cooking first. And then scramble to clean everything up behind me, set up the camera over here instead of in there, so I can film me talking and eating it, and then take a picture of the food. And then I edit, and that's the real slog. That's the part that I don't like. It can be 20 hours or so on any given video. So each video takes, it's a full-time, like 30 to 50 hours a video. I've gotten faster, but that's from 40 to 60 hours. So now I'm down to 30 to 50.
Oh, Daniel Platz has a good question. Over your research, have you noticed any trends that have changed for the better or for the worse when it comes to specific dishes?
Specific dishes. For the most part, trends have only gotten better. Our food is simply better because I'm not talking like McDonald's, but in general, cuisine now is better for a few reasons. One, ingredients tend to be fresher now for most people. In the past you could get some fresh ingredients, but for the most part, meat and everything was often salted to preserve it, and then it had to be washed. And so things are fresher, and the idea of bringing different cuisines together, they've built on each other. So techniques from German cuisine and Mexican cooking and all of these other cuisines, they have come together to create new cuisines in each country or wherever, and they're better. They take the best of what was there. Also, we have better equipment now. Everything is better. pretty much.
Al says his love, but also wants to know if 2
Thank you.
million for 2022.
2022, that's a lot of pressure. maybe by the end of 2023. I don't know. The thing is, like, once I hit 1 million, now I'm just not even looking anymore because it's kind of like it's going to be so long until the next milestone.
John Wrights asks, how much information lost to history gives you existential dread, or are you more of a half glass full guy?
I am. I mean, I am in general more of a half glass full guy. I'm pretty positive, but 99% of it is gone, and that's. I mean, it makes recreating things next to impossible because there's so much information missing, and some of it was never. You can't capture what a food tastes like. Even if people were writing down the description, you can't capture that. Nobody was ever capturing what 99% of the population was eating. The poor people throughout history. Nobody was capturing that information, and that kills me. Everything that was ever written by the Mayans, who knows if they wrote about their food, but it's gone. That was burnt and pretty much destroyed. The Library of Alexandria, don't even get me started on that. That just presses me. So yeah, a lot has been lost. Even more never made it down in the first place. Recipes in general, outside of Europe and parts of Eastern Asia, it really wasn't a thing to write down your recipes, and that breaks my heart.
Charmaine wants to know if ground coriander is a good substitute for cilantro. It's just a plant, though, isn't it?
So it is the same plant, but the flavors are actually quite different. Because if you have someone who doesn't like cilantro, and by cilantro I mean the leaves of the coriander plant, but then they taste the seeds of the coriander plant, which is typically called coriander here in the US, the flavor is different enough that they don't mind the seeds. Also, though, have a very, very strong and unique flavor. So I guess that is kind of maybe the best substitute, but they are very different. What's confusing is in England they call cilantro coriander. It's very, very confusing, and at different times in history it changes, even over here in the US. So sometimes figuring out, are you talking about the seeds or are you talking about the leaves? It's kind of hard. So you just kind of have to guess.
Okay. And then you've done a few Asian dishes on the.
I have done a few Asian dishes, and we have a lot more coming, actually.
That's DC. He wants to see some Southeast Asian recipes.
Bob's Discount Furniture. Somebody born.
We live near there.
I live. It's basically where we're. Not across the street. It's an empty building across the street, but that is our area. I've been to Bob's Discount Furniture. They didn't have what I needed.
Yeah, Mary Vaughn sends her love.
Thank you, Mary.
Will we see more hardtack clip?
Watch next Tuesday. And so the answer is yes. Of course, you'll see more hardtack clip, and you're going to see hardtack being used in a dish, because hardtack should not just be eaten, breaking your teeth. It's supposed to be softened and then used in different dishes. So that will be coming up at the 1-year anniversary of hardtack, which is the 2-year anniversary of Tasting History.
Besides the book, what's your goal for next year?
So I have a few more kind of, I guess, business ideas of ways to bring the audience in a little bit more and have you get to participate more in the actual, like, in historical cooking and stuff like that. So I want to work on those. So far away that I can't really describe even what I'm thinking. But so that's one. I want to do more episodes of. I want to do more kind of themed months, like I did Rome month. I want to do, I want to do a medieval month where I pick, like, I create an entire dish or an entire meal, but from different countries. Most of my medieval recipes come from England. One, a lot of the recipes are from England, and two, I read English, so I don't have to do as much translating. It's a lot easier. But there are medieval cookbooks from Spain, from Italy, from the Netherlands, from Germany, from France. So I want to, kind of do a lot more continental medieval cuisine. There are so many goals that they kind of get lost in my head, and then I end up achieving. I do achieve them, but there are just so many.
Here's a good one from Simona. Researching, writing, filming, editing, subtitles, patrons, subscribers, sponsors. How do you cope, and what's more demanding?
I mean, the videos, that's what's demanding. Everything else is kind of additional. The sponsors and Patreon, my Patreon patrons are just so cool that they, I'll be active and then I won't, and they're super understanding about, if I'm not posting things or whatever. But we do our monthly Patreon happy hour, which is always fun, but it's not super demanding. It's what they typically want is more episodes, and so that's what I'm constantly just trying to work on and that mostly is just research. That's what hinders. That's the thing that kind of denotes how many episodes I get out, is how many words can I read in a day. At the end of the day, my eyes just hurt. So there is a limit to how much I can read. My brain will just kind of, at a certain point in the day, it just stops. 7 p.m., my brain is like, you're done. I'm not doing anymore. So that's the hardest part, the research. But it's also my favorite part. And that's the part I will never give up. I'll give up the editing. Hey, you can take me out in front of the camera. I don't even care. But the research part I really like.
You are a history nerd through and through.
I am a history nerd. Did you all see the mug? Oh, no. On Tuesday, you'll see the mug. That episode hasn't aired yet. My brother got me a history nerd mug last year for Christmas. He gets me the best gifts.
John Hall says he loves your recipes and presentation.
What do
you think about it? Your presentation is just you at your dining table.
It is. And that's what's funny. I've had a lot of people be like, oh, well, you can get into a professional kitchen and have like lights and everything. When we move, I do want to have a professional lighting person come in and say, these are the lights you need. These are where they go. Because I'm going to try to get a place where we can have stuff a little bit more stationary and I'm not having to move every time I film. But I don't want a professional kitchen or anything. I like being at my dining room table or at my kitchen counter, because that is what the show is. It's me in my kitchen cooking and talking. And the way that I learned history from the beginning was talking to my grandpa over the kitchen table. And I think there's so much important stuff that happens over the kitchen table. I don't want to change that. Netflix, History Channel, those big cooking channel or whatever, they can have the professional kitchens. I won't.
FSU Art sends his regards. And then
thank you.
We have a threat here.
A threat?
From Christina. She said she'd make the pecan pie for Christmas and it better be good.
It is. I don't think I've had anybody say that it's not, that they haven't liked it. And we've had hundreds and hundreds of people make it. It's much more pecan-y. It is very different from the typical pecan pie. It's not as sweet, but it's really good.
And then YouTube user 914 wants to know if you are going to go on the road anytime soon.
So one thing that I'm going to do when I go to Phoenix is talk to my brother about a trip to Scotland. He and I have wanted to go for a while. And I want to make haggis, and I can't make haggis unless I go to Scotland because you can't get the ingredient. Some of the ingredients here, they're illegal. So yeah, that's our goal. And maybe film a couple other episodes in Scotland, in Northern England, maybe go to Wales, kind of do 2 or 3 weeks. So that is going to be Tasting History on the road. It's a lot of work to do things on the road. We've tried. It's not gone well. I do want to go to the Spam Festival, the Spam Jam in Hawaii.
I've never had spam still.
Cover the history of spam.
Weren't we supposed to do that during the wedding?
Yeah, but then, it was our wedding, so we got busy.
Have you considered creating your own alcohol?
Funny you say that. Is that Velocim mackerel?
Yeah.
Funny you say that. So I cannot make alcohol, but there is a company that I've been in talks with to create a tasting history whiskey. What they essentially do is they go to places like, Jack Daniel's Distillery and all these big distilleries, Knob Creek, and those distilleries, they have a specific flavor profile that they're going for, but a lot of their whiskey ends up not meeting that flavor profile. So they get rid of it. It doesn't mean it's bad. Sometimes it's even better, but it doesn't match their flavor profile for a given year. So then there are other people who come in and make these blends that are very specific, and it's kind of a one-time, this will never happen again blend of, you know, maybe 1,000 bottles or whatever. And so that is a big possibility. Yes.
Our follower Laura Gutierrez appreciates you sharing ingredients in cups, grams, and milliliters.
Milliliters and millimeters. 80 millimeters of carrot. You're welcome. I cook in metric. I bake in metric. I think you can only bake in metric. If you're not, then it's probably not turning out right. I prefer grams. I prefer milliliters, and then I actually convert to cups and the American format. I have nothing against it. Well, yeah, I do. It's not a very good way to measure things for cooking. That's what I have against it. It's not very precise. So, yes. And the cookbook will have all the metric as well.
334 Outdoors is asking, have you thought about cooking wild game or catching your own fish?
So yes and yes. So I love fishing. I love deep sea fishing. So I would love to actually do that and cook some fish, catch some mahi or something. Wild game. I've never shot anything that wasn't a target. So I don't know if I could do that, but I would absolutely cook wild game. I would love to cook pheasant, and you know, it's such an important part of culinary history that it's kind of like you got to. Maybe when I go to England, if pheasant hunting, I'll watch somebody shoot a pheasant.
Any upcoming collabs that you would like to do? Because you've marked off Townsend's as far as like a Zoom.
I have, but I want to do something with Townsend's. I want to go to Indiana and actually film with him. You
Same
know,
as Zola, you were on her.
Yeah, with Zola. You know, she's in New York, so there's a full ability to go there. I have been in contact, I don't want to say in talks, but I have been in contact with How to Drink, and we actually have some ideas of some historic drinks that we would like to cover. It would be kind of cool to go see his setup, as his bar setup is so cool. And I know that his camera setup, you know, I really want to start meeting other YouTubers who have been doing this longer to see their setup, how they do their camera, how do they do their lights, all this kind of stuff. Because there's got to be a better way. The way that I'm doing it right now, it's such a pain in the butt. So that's actually, that is a goal that I have this year, is get better at all that. Because I'm not good at all that.
Or live streaming. This is our favorite.
And live streaming. There's a reason that our last live stream, I think, was almost a year ago, right? For the 1 year anniversary. It's so hard. We do it on his channel on Catch Up with Max and Jose. It's much easier.
Less people.
It's hard to set up.
Here's another person, Miss Crone, to collaborate with.
Oh, I mean, I would love to do that, especially when I go to England. Oh, that might be fun, actually.
Also,
it's actually not her that is doing. So she's an actress. Oh, sorry, I'm talking to him. Yeah. She's an actress. So I need to find out like who actually does all of the back end stuff. Talk to them about getting me with Miss Crocum. I don't know.
Yeah, and speaking of collabs, Babish liked your 1 year post.
Yeah,
on Instagram.
Or the 1 million. Yeah, so Binging with Babish commented on my 1 million, and I was like, oh, so I would love to do something with Binging with Babish. I think his stuff is just fun and cool. I kind of felt a little bit like I was stepping on Babish territory when I did the Kingsman Bakewell Tart, because you know he does stuff from movies and TV shows.
But it was a sponsored video, so
it was just so cool to get to work with, you know, my old job coming to me and being like, hey, would you want to work with us in your new job? And it was very rewarding.
And that's out today, actually.
Yes, the movie is out today.
22nd.
It is.
Do you know Bernadette Banner?
I know that name. Does she do historic clothing? No.
She must be. This is from Tiny Shiny Crumb asking if you would collaborate with her.
I know that name. I think I follow. I think I know who that is. Yes, the answer is yes.
Ashley from Japan sends her love.
Thank you, Ashley. Oh, Emmy made in Japan. That's who I'd love to collab with.
That's a good one.
She just seems so nice, and I like nice people. We live with a very grumpy cat, so whenever nice people are around, it's a bit of a reprieve.
John Hall wants to ask if you're thinking of Caribbean or Creole Cajun food, especially because of pirates.
Yes to both. Caribbean food. There's actually an old Puerto Rican cookbook that I found that I would like to cook from. So, yes. Also, there's a Jamaican black cake, which is usually served around Christmas time, and that's a possibility for next Christmas. And I could talk about the history of fruitcake, which is actually quite interesting. And fruitcake gets a bad rap because we have bad fruitcake here in the U.S., but it can be very good.
For some reason in my head, I get confused between panettone, fruitcake, and figgy pudding. It's all the same to me.
So they're all very different. Well, they're all different. Figgy pudding and fruitcake are closer, but panettone is very different. I had a lot of people yesterday saying, "Isn't this just fruitcake?" And it's like, no. I mean, some of the same ingredients, but so different. So different. There's a Scottish fruitcake that I'm going to mention in next week's episode called a black bun, which I really want to try, just because it looks devilish. It's not a bun. I don't know why it's called that. Anyone from Scotland can tell us why it's called a black bun, other than it is black. But
besides haggis, are there any other recipes coming up from that part of the world?
I mean, next week is shortbread. So spill the beans. Next Tuesday's episode is shortbread, which is a lot of fun. I like the Scottish episodes. You'll have to sit through my bad Scottish accent. So sorry. I don't have things planned out that far. I've got an Indian recipe coming. And another Greek recipe. I don't know. Don't quiz me.
Have you thought about doing anything with insects, or is that
nope.
too much?
I have not. Would I like to try a cricket covered in chocolate or something? Yes. Am I going to on the channel? No, probably not.
No, why not?
I mean, would I? Maybe. I don't know.
It's like Survivor.
It's kind of like after I've done everything else, then you'll see me make a grub.
Arak's asking for Australian food like
pavlova. So this one doesn't like pavlova because of the sound when it gets cut into. Yes to Australian food. I have a couple Australian cookbooks. But the really cool Australian food, because a lot of it is just English food made in Australia, from at least the 1800s. What kind of makes it different are all of the ingredients that were specific to Australia, like kangaroo tail and wallaby and everything. You can't get that here, at least in the form that I would need for those recipes. Sometimes you can get ground kangaroo and stuff like that. It's not right for those recipes. So that might require some travel as well.
Oh, here's another collaborator in this. John Cannell from Preppy Kitchen. He's a really good baker.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely... Oh, and Gugu Meats? Gugu? He's from France. There's this guy who does meat in France and sous vide everything. We're in contact, so that would be cool to do too.
Have you considered German Stollen?
Stollen, yes. Considered it. I love tasting it. So yeah, making it would definitely be fun. I wonder if there's an old Stollen recipe from like the 1800s. I bet there is. I need to find that, and I bet it hasn't changed much. I also want to do some Austrian foods. I found a cool Austrian cookbook that I'd like to do. I'd also like to do some later stuff from the 50s. Not too much, but especially some of the weirder things like aspic and whatnot. Especially, yeah, I've got some cool ideas when it comes to aspic episodes.
That's ASPIC.
Yes, ASPIC.
Actually, this one's come up a bit. Ghost Town, doing a collaboration with Ghost Town Cerro Gordo. Is it a spooky channel?
I don't know.
Oh, Max doesn't like scary things. He's a big chicken.
It's true. I do not like scary movies or scary anything. There's enough scary stuff in this world. Why watch scary movies? Though, what's the one that I like that he's making? Oh, and he's making a new one on Vikings. The Witch, scary movie. Really, really like that. And now he has one called Northman or the Northman, and it's about Vikings.
That comes out next year.
Comes out in April.
Oh, here's a good
Looking
one.
forward to that.
Chris Snyder wants to know, how did you get started in the entertainment industry? What is your history?
I went to school for music, for singing. I've been singing since I was like 6. Professionally singing since high school, and then I went to school for that and went into musical theater. I was going to do classical, but I went into musical theater after school. Moved to New York, did stuff in New York, and then toured for a bit. And then had enough of living in New York. Because if you're not rich in New York, it's a very hard place to live. Fun, but hard. And so I moved out here to LA to do I did some voiceover, but then I had a friend who was working at Walt Disney Studios.
Give us a voice. It's been a while.
On the background.
Iago's my favorite. You gotta give me Iago.
It's been years since I've done them. That's the problem.
Give it a go.
You know what I'm talking about. I used to do Iago the parrot.
After they got rid of Gilbert Gottfried, and then he came back. But I got to do a few little things in there while he was on hiatus for being naughty. And so then I worked at Walt Disney Studios because I had a friend who was working there, and he was like, "Yeah, we can bring you on as a temp. I just needed some extra cash." I was poor, and so I temped at Walt Disney Studios, and like on my 5th day, the person who I was temping for said, "We're actually looking to hire full time." I was like, "All right, why not?" I was kind of done performing at that point in time for a while, and so I worked at Walt Disney Studios, and it was fantastic, and I loved pretty much all of it. And the person that I worked for there at the beginning was just fantastic. So yeah, and then they furloughed me, and I started tasting history.
You started tasting history right before.
I started tasting history right before I got furloughed. It was perfect timing.
Because of the camera.
Yes. So it's funny. If I had not started tasting history right before the pandemic, or right before I got furloughed, I probably would have started tasting history, because to start a YouTube channel, at least the way that I wanted to do it, is not cheap. You have to get a camera and a computer that can do the editing and just all of this cooking stuff and all of this stuff, lighting, and it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's probably over $1,000. And once I was furloughed, it was like, nope, not spending a penny. So I wouldn't have started the channel if it had happened just a couple weeks later, really. So that's called good timing.
Mandy Story wants to tell you that she's proud of what you've done with Tasting History.
Thank you, Mandy. I got to say, I'm pretty proud. I'm pretty proud too. It's pretty cool. Totally unexpected, but proud.
Yeah. Derek says he got into your channel from Melos, amazing channel, and looks forward to videos every week.
I was just thinking of Melos earlier today, actually. I was like, what an odd... That episode felt so rushed. I remember coming downstairs and telling Jose, like, I don't have an episode. I'm going to throw something together. And the research portion, like, I did it in half the time as usual, and I felt like I just rushed it and everything. And then when the episode was finished, I was like, actually, I think it's pretty good. And then it's one of the most popular episodes on the channel. So, and then there are episodes where I spend so much time and do so much work and think it's a great idea. And then it's like, meh, doesn't do well. So you can never tell. You can never tell.
That's right.
That is the thing with YouTube. Is I would love to do a chat on just like all of what YouTube entails, and how hard and rewarding it is, but just all the stuff, because I get a lot of messages from people who want to start YouTube channels, and unfortunately I just don't have time to walk them through the whole process these days. So maybe I'll have to do a video just on that. Maybe it'll go on your channel.
Craig wants to know if you have an old recipe for lutefisk.
I don't have an old recipe for lutefisk. However, I would still like to make lutefisk. I am guessing the recipe has not changed at all, because who would design that dish now, no living person would do that. But it has some really cool history and some of the people that ate it and everything. So I would like to do lutefisk. I've never eaten lutefisk. I've smelled it, and that's why I've never eaten it. But one of these days I will.
Sorry, back to Russian cuisine real quick. Any specific recipes you want to try from there?
Turnip pudding. Baked turnip pudding. So they have a lot of turnips, had a lot of turnips in Russia. Now they have a lot of potatoes, but there were no potatoes in Russia earlier on. Of course, they're a New World food. So there are turnips in almost everything. Turnip alcohol, turnip this, turnip that. They basically made vodka from turnips before potatoes. That was one of the things you could make vodka from. And there's this baked turnip pudding in the book. So I'd like to make that. I like borscht. So I wouldn't mind doing that if I can find. There's also a recipe that I really want to do. It's not German. It's not Russian. It's kind of both for biroks, which has an interesting... It doesn't have an interesting history. The people who made them have a very interesting history that actually starts with Catherine the Great, which, if you don't watch The Great, it is not historically accurate, and yet it is absolutely wonderful. It's a fun show about Catherine the Great.
Huzzah.
Huzzah!
Jay Watson asked if you could kindly sing her a song.
A song?
Yeah.
What do you want to hear, Jay?
Well, I'm not going to see if she replies, so.
Dankeschön, darling, Dankeschön. Thank you for... Oh, does anyone remember that song?
I've never heard it.
I was going to say,
can you sing something?
I was around when that came out. It was like the 50s. 60s, probably.
Simona wants to know if you're interested in collecting historic kitchen tools.
Super interested. In fact...
You don't have room for
it. I don't care. I'll make room. This is not a historic kitchen tool, but I did have someone send me this along with several other pewter pieces. Some of them old enough that they do still include lead, so I do have to be careful on what I put on there. You can use lead pewter for many things, as long as it's not something that leaches out lead, like tomatoes, which is why people thought tomatoes were poisonous. And I've had several people send me some cool kitchen gadgets, historical kitchen gadgets, some cool molds for gingerbread, which I would like to use. They need to be refinished for the most part because they've split, and so the batter will just go right into the actual mold and then break it when it bakes. But yes, no, I love historical kitchen gadgets. I'd love more.
All right. Bill Stevens, he's new to the channel and wants to give you a shout out.
Thank you, Bill.
He's a novelist, and have you considered doing audiobooks with your voiceover background?
I actually did do audiobooks in the past. I will not do audiobooks anymore because they take forever, and I would rather be making episodes. But I actually have done some.
I remember you recording in the closet.
In the past, yes. And oh yeah. And like, unless you have like a proper booth, I had to record in the closet. I turned it into a recording booth. And so recording during the summer was just hellish because it would get so hot in there and it has to be perfectly quiet. And we live in an area where there's always, I think they're always blowing leaves. There are always leaf blowers. But yes, but I would actually like to do voiceover again, but probably not audiobooks. It's that long format. It is a different skill.
Highlander wants to know, in the future, when they make a movie about you and all your success, who do you want to play you?
Matt Damon when he was 30. Is that a possibility? I like Matt Damon when he was 30. Like the Bourne Identity movies. It's great movies. He could do a good job.
Victoria Meredith says you're amazing.
Thank you, Victoria.
Take some questions.
Oh, yes. I will. We'll see. Here. Oh, there is a button that just goes right to the bottom. Did tasting history make you want to learn a certain language? Not a specific language. I do think that it's helped me want to learn just more language in general, but especially how to pronounce language. I've always enjoyed learning proper pronunciations. I'm not perfect, far from it. And sometimes it's because I don't know, like when I say Pavia instead of Pavia in Italy, it's because I've always heard it Pavia and just that's just kind of what's in my head. Some other words, but I love language. I don't know if anyone here, I'm sure people do, watch the channel Native Lang. It's all about the history of language and how different languages evolved and how they probably sounded. And it's such his channel is so fascinating. And it's his videos must take him forever to do, but I love language, but not to learn any specific language. I am trying to learn Spanish, but slow going.
So slow.
Rude. Would you do a series on survival foods and where they come from? Insects for the 2 million milestone. Well, them insects. First it was the black rat, now it's insects. My goodness. Survival foods, yes, actually, and one of them is pemmican, and that's the one that I ended up getting moved because another channel ended up doing it. So I was just like, oh, I'll do something else. But no, I would like to do that and other survival foods. I also want to do more war rations and war foods from like World War I and even World War II. Some cooking, war cooking.
Ding Ding and CM send their love.
Thank
and
you.
And then another question from Brad. Just says congratulations. And for those who don't know, it's like, why the whole plush in the back?
So, and then remind me, what's the weirdest source you've researched for a recipe? I'll get back to that. So these are here because we used to have this little guy from Animal Crossing, Brewster, back there. And when I first recorded the first episode, is actually the second episode because the first one I was in the kitchen. Second episode, he was back there, and we didn't really like notice because it was just super casual, and the only person who was going to watch was my mom. But we did notice him back there, and some friends commented on it. So then we swapped him out with another little character, and those first like 12 episodes, it was usually not Pokemon, it was other things. But someone in this house has a very, very substantial Pokemon collection.
It's me.
So Jose. And so that's now what it's just become. And it's just fun. Sometimes they relate to the history or the recipe in a way. Sometimes they don't. I don't know. It's just fun. Keeps it light, real casual. So somebody had asked the weirdest sources that I've looked at for while doing research. And I think that historic medical manuals are usually the weirdest because medicine and food has been intertwined for so long that you end up looking at just some of the weirdest medical manuals. And I always end up going to like the surgery parts that have nothing to do, and I never cover them in the episodes. But yeah, the surgery stuff in these old manuals is kind of cool. They're very, very specific and they come with pictures. Next question.
So Muzas15 has another one. It's his third question. Do you know the difference between a shepherd's pie and hache parmentier?
I've never even heard of the latter.
Hache parmentier. No?
I don't. I love shepherd's pie.
Add it to the list.
With actual shepherd peppered on top. Some Sweeney Todd.
Here's a question for me. How is it to live with a YouTube celebrity? I don't think of him as a celebrity.
Nobody in this house thinks of me as a celebrity.
And if anything, my goal is to keep you humble.
That's right.
And I think you are a humble person. Otherwise, well, no, I take that back. He's not a humble person. But my goal is to keep him grounded. And I don't think I would be with someone who wasn't like that.
Yeah, and being a YouTube celebrity, and that word doesn't mean the same thing, I guess. I have gotten noticed or recognized a few times out on the street, which is kind of cool, especially when we travel. Here in LA, you can see like Tom Cruise going down the street, so it's not a big deal. But in other places, it has. But it's such an insular job. I'm always here at home by myself and everything. So it doesn't feel like anyone else even knows I exist. I know, of course, that they do. millions of people that
Someone said that sounds better this way.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
great.
well, there you go.
All right, we'll stick with that.
The stream's almost over, so.
But I don't think of myself as a celebrity at all. It doesn't feel like that, at least, especially not in this household. The cats don't care. What's the oldest recipe that I've made? I've made the oldest written recipe, which is two of them actually from Babylon. Those are the first written recipes. I would like to try to recreate what Bitsy the Iceman ate, who was a guy who was encased in ice, but they found what was in his stomach, and I would need to find ibex meat to do that, but that would be kind of cool.
Oh, here's one that comes up often. Have you ever considered a restaurant specializing?
No.
Oh, there we go.
I've worked in restaurants, and I will never. Restaurants are hard. I mean, would it be so cool? Yes, absolutely. But oh man, what I would do is some kind of like pop-up maybe, but like a long-term restaurant. Whew. Anyone who you know that works in restaurants, give them a hug. Give them a hug.
Oh,
It's
someone
hard.
asked for ancient Korean. But you did do one Korean recipe.
I
did
Did
that
an old
great.
Korean recipe and nobody cared. I want to do more. Again, when you say ancient, what is ancient? We don't have a lot of recipes going way back, though there is actually a kimchi recipe, a description kind of how to make kimchi that I would like to do. So yeah, there is more. And Korean history, the more I've learned about it, is actually really fascinating. It's always just kind of been at this pull and tug between other bigger powers. Even when they were at their height, it just they could make some interesting episodes. So watch them when I put them up.
And then someone wants to ask what my favorite recipe from this.
Jose's favorite recipe.
I don't always get to try everything. I get
True.
to try most of it, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm working. Like, I don't have time for this right now. Like, go away. Like, leave me
I annoy
alone.
him a lot.
I think if maybe in the future I could go full time and help Max and do a lot more. I mean, I help with the social media stuff. I do the subtitles, but he does need help. So eventually, you should be getting an assistant.
Yes, I need an assistant super
sometime
bad.
next year. But I think one of my favorite dishes is still the sambucad, the cheesecake, because I love cheesecake. So
If anyone out there wants to learn how to do a YouTube channel, I could teach you. Sambucad.
that's a dangerous call out.
It is a dangerous call out.
Take it back.
I have a lot of specifics that I'll be looking for, and you have to be here in LA. That's the main thing. The sambucad, that was the first recipe. You haven't had anything better since then? That was the only one that you actually requested that I make again, though.
That's right. The roast beef was really delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
I didn't like the garlic sauce, but
It was very garlicky and very vinegary.
it was sour.
Yeah. Moroccan cuisine, something from Northern Africa. So I've actually done some Northern African things, but when it comes to Moroccan, I did get a tangine, so I do want to actually use that. Uncle Roger. Yes, I want to collab with Uncle Roger. Or I would just love him to call me out on something because he's amazing and so funny. I need to do something that will make him pull me through the ringer. Put me through the ringer. Thank you, Joshua.
His ad blocker on. Smart man.
Smart man with the ad blocker. But I appreciate the support. Regardless. Great Depression food. Yes, I would like to do some Great Depression food, though there is actually a channel. Oh, she was so sweet. She's passed away. It's called, I think, Great Depression Cooking or Cooking from the Great Depression. And it's just this old woman who actually lived through the Depression, cooking all of the things that her mom cooked during the Depression. And she's fantastic. And she does give little bits of history. It's more personal history in there, but it's really, really charming. An idea on an episode on medicinal cuisine. So yes, absolutely. I did talk about some of the medicinal aspects of cuisine in an episode that I did really, really early on the Four Humors. I would actually like to do a whole other episode on the Four Humors. The show's changed enough that I think I could cover it in a more robust manner. Yeah, every old cookbook practically, not everyone, but 50% of them have a section for medical foods and what to cook when you're sick or whatever. It very, very interesting topic. Very interesting topic. Been watching since you had just 2 episodes. Dawn Bandit. That was Sambucot. So the first episode was cheese, which I did here. And then the second one here was Sambucot, which I didn't taste. And I still, probably once every few days, I'll get a comment that'll pop up. Why didn't you taste the food? I didn't taste for like the first 6 or 7 episodes. And people still comment. They're like, what does it taste like?
Actually, the channel started as just tasting history, right? It wasn't tasting history with Max Miller at first?
No, so I changed it to tasting history with Max Miller because nobody knew my name. They kept calling me Matt or Mark,
Mike,
and I still get that. But it's Max. Pacific Island recipes. Yes, that was actually supposed to have happened while we were in Hawaii, but we got distracted. I was just super lazy in Hawaii. I did work on the book, actually. Assyrian foods, like old Assyria, because there are no recipes from old Assyria, but there are from Babylon. It would have been very, very similar. But I should do some Assyrian history. That could be. Colonial New England. Absolutely. I've done a couple things, but I do want to do more. I would actually like to go to Boston and do some historic cooking up there. Here we go. Any plans of collecting your modernized recipes into a cookbook? Yes, I'm working on it. Earlier I said that it was due to the publisher in the next couple of weeks, and then it'll be a while before it's actually out. But yes, the answer is yes. And then who knows? Cornish pasty. Absolutely. I need to do Cornish pasties. I love Cornish pasties. And they have some interesting history. They were eaten in mines to keep the mercury off of your food. My family doesn't speak English, and I really appreciate the translate feature. You know, Jose does all the subtitles. Spends hours and hours on them. It takes him a very long time because what YouTube Auto does is less than great, especially because I use a lot of foreign words and I speak very fast.
So I do the Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese, but it's not that great because I also use like a translating and then I kind of clean it up. So it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing.
But it's better than nothing. Yeah, I do wish, and I do hope that in the next few years, I think that'll be something that YouTube kind of perfects, is better translations, better subtitles with the machine learning. I am a learning computer kind of coming about, hopefully. All right, it's after 1. It's about my lunchtime. So we should probably wrap this up. What time is it in LA right now? It's 1:06. It's time for lunch. So thank you so much, everyone, for your support, your continued watching of the channel. It really just, I mean, I don't even know how to put how happy I am. I'm bad with those kind of things, but it's been life-changing, all for the best, for both of us, for the cats even. And yeah, I have such a cool audience, such a supportive audience, and I know how lucky I am. And that's very, very lucky. So thank you all.
Oh, and also for teaching him how to not have his fruit sink in the panettone.
Yes! I have read every book on baking. I have watched every episode of Great British Bake Off. I had never heard about dredging the fruit in flour, but everyone else seemed to know that. So that is something that has just gotten past me. So next time I make something with suspended fruit, that is what I'm doing. So I appreciate that. And I do appreciate, when you gently correct me, as long as you're nice about it. And I really appreciate all of your suggestions, and I'm always taking them. tastinghistorycontact@gmail.com. Even if I don't respond to you, know that I got it, that I read it, and I'll try to get back to you eventually. All right.
You got to pay the cat tax.
Oh, cat tax. Here comes Jamie. Cersei's up here too, but she won't let us pick her up. Oh, we dropped your food, buddy. Isn't he just the cutest? All he sees is the food now. He's coming to Phoenix with us because we can't leave him with Cersei because he eats all of her food. So he's getting ready for a big car ride. Lucky him. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.